Hey there, this is not Bland Bistro reservation line. Do you want to make a reservation?
Let's do it.
I'd be happy to help you with that. Can you please tell me what date you're looking to make a reservation for?
I was thinking August 15th.
August 15th. What time were you thinking of coming in? Would you prefer lunch or dinner?
I think dinner, maybe like 7 p.m.
So August 15th, 7 p.m. How many people will be joining us for dinner?
It'll be 2 people.
Please give me a moment as I check our bookings. I've made a reservation for August 15th at 7 p.m. for 2 people. I look forward to seeing you then. Goodbye.
Thanks. I'm going to show you how to build that exact same voice bot from start to finish. More importantly, I'm going to show you the principles behind building any kind of voice system so that you can build a voice AI for your use case. Let's get started. Okay, so the main thing you want to understand about Bland AI is that it's very, very simple, right? There's no coding involved, there's no NLP involved, it's all done for you. You just have to pick the right building blocks and accordingly connect them so that the conversation makes sense. The building blocks for this is going to be nodes, and so just like any no-code builder, like VoiceFlow, BotPress, you build the nodes, you add some information, you connect it to the next one, and that is how the whole conversation is built. We're going to go over these as I'm walking through this conversation pathway. So the first thing is going to be the start node, right? And this is your default node because it's just a default conversation. Nothing fancy going on here. The name is going to be what I'm calling it, which is what you see on the outside here. That is important because as you build more complex workflows, it's going to start to get really confusing real quick. So make sure these names are good. I should probably name this introduction. And over here, so this is going to be where you spend most of your time. This is the actual, description, identifier, whatever you want to call it. Static text, which is what I have here, is just saying the text verbatim. So like as you saw in the demonstration, it's going to say, hey there, this is not Bland Bistro reservation line. It's going to say word for word. What you can also do is make it more variable. And so this is the equivalent of asking ChatGPT to come up with something. So if I give you the instruction, greet the user and ask if they are interested in using AI, you get the idea here. I can also do this, right? But the difference, right? This is where the AI engineer, like the brain kind of comes into this whole thing. Does it really matter if the initial greeting is variable? And the answer is no, right? Like if somebody's going to call this number, it's going to be for a reservation. We know that for a fact. So why keep this as a potential area of hallucination and an area of breaking when I don't have to, right? That is why I have static text over here. That is why the demo has static text. The next thing is going to be loop condition. And we're going to see this in action in the next node. But basically, in this example, if I need to have an answer of do you want to make a reservation, right? Or like how are you doing? You want an answer. You do not move forward until you get an answer. That is where the loop condition happens, right? You tell it, unless the user gives me an answer, do not continue, right? In this simplified workflow, we don't have that. It doesn't really matter. Global node, this is like basically you can access this block. I can go to this block from any other block. And so you'll notice restaurant questions over here, it's highlighted in yellow. This is a global block. What that means is if at any point in this conversation, the person has a question about the restaurant as a whole, go to this node here, go to knowledge base, and here it's just like 4 different items, like 2 different things here. Actually answer the question using the knowledge base. In this case, it's just opening hours and address, and go back to the original node. In my case here, I don't want this to be a global node because I only want the introduction to happen once. You only say, hi, how are you doing at the start of the conversation. You don't say it after that. That's why it's not a global node. And then advanced options. So I don't know why this is called advanced options. This is actually super important. I play with this a lot, right? If it's a general greeting when I'm just starting out with, I'm just going to pick higher speed model because I don't need to use too much brain power, right? It's the equivalent of using like an 8 billion parameter model versus a 500 billion parameter model. To say this static text over here and like process that whole thing and determine whether they like said they want to make a reservation, that doesn't require that much brain power. And so the benefit here is you can just go quick. The whole point of this is to make it feel like a human, and a human responds right away. So we can use higher speed here, and there's no drawbacks. That's why that's there. Temperature, it's how creative or, how likely it is to output different text for a given, prompt. And this one I don't play with too much, right? Like anywhere from, like 0.1 to 0.6 will be good. If you try to do it too high, then it's gonna go crazy and like start saying random stuff. Keep in mind, this is not using ChatGPT. This is using Bland AI's own in-house models. So we don't really know how they work, but they're not as smart as ChatGPT. Extract call info variables. I'm gonna show this to you later on. So let's move on to the next node, right? We get an answer, the user responded. In this super simplified example, the answer is always yes. So next node is gonna be ask for reservation info. So it's very simple, ask for the date, time, number of guests. ask each question one at a time, right? That's it. Notice how this is not static text, right? It's not saying the same thing every single time. This is an instruction. And the reason for that is because we're gonna have to go back and forth until we get all that information. If I first ask what the date is, then I have to ask again, what time do you want on that date? How many guests are there? So that's where this loop condition comes in, right? You must get the date, time, and number of guests for this reservation. Until this condition's met, until I get those three variables, I don't move on to the next thing. Here for advanced options, I'm gonna pick the higher intelligence model because I'm gonna have to keep track of these three things over here, right? What's going on in the back end, if you're curious, is it's gonna have a transcript. So if I just have test pathway here, and if I just say, do you wanna make a reservation? Yes, for August 15th. What's gonna happen is it's gonna have this conversation data in its memory. So it's gonna be in its prompt, and it's gonna ask itself, have I got all those three pieces of information? If the answer is no, then I have to loop back, right? That's all that's going on in the back end. There's no like wizardry, no trickery or anything like that going on. That's why you need a higher intelligence model, because it needs the ability to recall what happened previously. If you try to pick a too small of a model, or in this case, a higher speed model, it might not get that correctly 100% of the time. And we need those three things, right? Without having the date or the time and the number of guests, we can't make a proper reservation. Now is a bit of the fun part. So if the number of guests is more than 8, then we just transfer the call, because probably need a real person to take care of that. But if the number of people is less than 8, then we're gonna actually automate the process of booking a reservation, right? This is the cool part. This is where the money's actually made. So if I go in here, notice the webhook type is, or the node type is webhook. This restaurant is gonna already have a calendar, right? It has some form of calendar which shows the number of openings for a given hour, the number of tables, the types of tables, and all that stuff. So if we wanna confirm a person on the call and their reservation, just like a human, we would have to check and see, is that time slot available? Like, are there enough tables? Is that time during the opening hours? All that stuff. And that is what this node over here is going to take care of. The first thing is going to be the variable. So what I need to send to my server, like, it's going to be a webhook. So like, you send a response, you get a response back. But if you're not technical, don't worry about that. Just think of it like calling another human and checking to see whether the calendar invite or like the opening the person requested is available. That's all that's going on there. But before we even do that, the server's going to expect to know what is the actual time, date, and number of people that we're trying to book in, right? So that is why we have this variable over here. So this is standard stuff, date, time, and number of people. Everything's taken care of for you. What's happening in the back end is it's going to go back and use an LLM, use ChatGPT equivalent model, go through the whole transcript and extract these variables. So your job is to just to make sure that the right name, the right variable type. So string is, you know, like with the quotes, it's just ASCII characters. Integer is number. You just need to make sure this is right and the rest of it's taken care of for you. And the webhook, this is something I'm gonna make a separate video on how to set this up. For now, it's a dummy webhook, but I want you guys to understand the idea. We're gonna send this data, the date, the time, and the number of people in JSON format, but it's fine if you don't know what that is. We're just gonna send that data to the server, and the server's gonna give a response back saying, yes, that time is available and I booked it in, or no, that time is busy, but here are some other options. So that in action in, I guess, semi-low code format is this over here. Response is what I get back from the server. That's what the webhook's gonna respond back to me with, and that's gonna be reservation success. So if the reservation happened, it's true. If the reservation did not happen, it's false. And then it's also gonna give me available time slots. So it's just gonna be like in string form, 5 p.m., 6 p.m., and 7 p.m. is available on that day, right? It's really just that simple here. As this thing is loading, you wanna make sure you give some feedback. So just like how in a real person, the person is gonna say, oh yeah, I'm checking through my calendar. This is what that's there for. And ultimately what's gonna happen through this node is we're gonna get a true or a false, which is what these two different pathways represent. So if the reservation is a success, that means it's gonna be true. And if that is the case, then we just tell the person, you made the reservation for the given time and date with a number of guests, blah, 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 blah. And we're good now, goodbye. So that's the easy, the simple way. More often than not, what's gonna happen is it's not gonna be true, right? They're gonna say a time, 7 p.m. on a Friday, that is not available. And so at that point, it's to go back and forth, but it's gonna be with the AI to figure out what time is gonna work for both of us. Like the way we go about this is actually pretty simple, but a little confusing the first time you hear it. So the prompt here is tell the user that there are no more slots for the given date and time, which is true, right? Because we couldn't make the booking go through. Give alternatives to the user given available slots you have in your conversation history. So available slots, where does that come from? That comes back from this reservation booking here. So notice the response I get, that's why I highlighted that, is going to be available slots. And here it's going to be in text form what the available slots are. That's what it's referring to. Another thing to notice is that notice this is not static text. This is going to be variable. Like it's like a prompt that we're giving the LLM to follow, an instruction we need to follow, because the available slots can defer. Actually, it's going to defer every single day, like every single hour, depending on the booking. So that's why that's variable. That's why we let the LM take care of that. That's it for this, right? Extract call info variable. So once the person says a new time, like we're gonna make the assumption here that the date is the same. Technically, if it's another date, then you would have to restructure this thing. But for simplicity, if there's a new time, then store that time in a new variable or like the same variable, but like rewrite the value so that when the next call is made, because what's gonna happen is once the time is actually decided, it's gonna go back to reservation booking and it's gonna call this API again, the webhook again. It's gonna ask, is that time valid? If it's valid, then we go over here. If it's not valid, it's going to give other alternative. That's how this whole loop works, right? And a small detail here is that if the user gives time slot that's not in the available slot, so if the calendar here says that 4 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m. is available and the user says, I want to book at 9 p.m., that's not an available time slot. So that's why the user will that's why it'll loop back here. That's what the AI will say. Yes, it's a little bit of a bug, but for simplicity, I've kept it this way, or at least the demo has kept it this way. But you can kind of build a bigger, loop or like a bit bigger system here so that it accounts for that. It's not that hard, but we're trying to keep this simple here. So that's that. And I mean, at this point, when the reservation is a success, it's just take it home, right? We just tell the user the reservation for the given date and time and number of guests is made. Look forward to seeing you and goodbye. That's all there is to it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I promise you guys it's gonna be really simple and I hope I fulfilled on that promise. If you have any questions, just comment it down below. I'm gonna be making more videos on voice AI, so be sure to subscribe for that. And thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.